Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. And now, Tider Insider TV.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome into another edition of Tider Insider TV, presented each and every week by Buffalo Rock Bottling Company. Alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, I'm Gary Harris. And Rodney, these Diet Pepsi's going to taste a whole lot better after a win.
Yeah, they sure
They taste good anytime. They're going to taste even better.
For a second.
Love that noise. Last week, we had to come on and do this show after a loss. Doesn't happen often in the regular season. In fact, doesn't happen ever in September. Man, that's good. But it did last week. We recapped the Ole Miss game. We looked ahead to the ULM game, and Rodney, that's where we're going to start, this past Saturday's game. And it went a lot like we thought it would. If you watched TITV from last week, you heard Rodney say he thought they were going to simplify the offense, not get too fancy, try to be very conservative, protect that defense. Rodney, the game plan went kind of scripted the way that you thought it would go, and Alabama wins at 34-0 over the Warhawks. Not a lot of total offense, only 303 yards, but they held ULM to 92 yards total offense and no points. That's quite an effort in this day and age.
You know, ULM had come in, Gary, with over 1,500 yards of total offense in their 3 previous games. I mean, Alabama held them to 91 yards, only 9 yards rushing. That's pretty phenomenal. And again, I understand that a lot of people say, well, it's ULM, but at the same time, they're a team that's moved the ball. They had over 200 yards against Georgia. And you just cannot give enough credit to the Alabama defense, in my opinion. 6 sacks. So they pressured the quarterback, stopped the run, did a lot of really promising things as you start looking forward to the future. A lot of young players played. We saw Rashaan Evans make a sack. We saw Deshaun Hand have a sack and a half. We saw the freshman Ronnie Harrison with the interception. There you see on the offensive side, Calvin Ridley scoring a touchdown, the true freshman. So, again, it was a total team effort.
And Jake Coker, pretty good numbers, 17 of 31. 1 pick, 3 touchdowns, and as Coach Saban said after the game, really should have been 5. Ridley dropped what would have been his 2nd touchdown catch of the day. And on a long ball, Ardarius Stewart, it was a tough catch. You see him making one right there, but it's one he could have made. Then all of a sudden, Jake Coker's got a 5-touchdown day.
Yeah, absolutely, Gary. And in the second half, he was 7 of 10, did have a touchdown pass, as you mentioned, dropped by Calvin Ridley. Would have been 8 of 10, so he had probably his best half of the season so far. So hopefully that's an indication of the direction Jake Coker's starting to move.
Running game, not what we had gotten used to this year. As I said, the total yardage numbers were way down. Over 500 total yards the first 3 games. Of course, Alabama didn't run as many snaps. The defense provided him with a short field a couple of times, but Drake had 10 carries for 66 yards. Henry just 13 carries for 52, but he was coming off of illness, and they didn't want to overwork him. Want both those guys really to be fresh for Georgia. So limited workload. Harris, the freshman, got in and got some carries. Gore, the walk-on, got some carries. So they spread it around with the run game. And, you know, I like the way they did that. Get those guys some work, but don't overwork them. They need to be ready and fresh for Georgia.
Oh, absolutely. And when you look at it, too, Gary, Coach Saban mentioned the fact that they did go very vanilla on the offensive line, which, you know, created some opportunities for ULM's stunning defensive front to make some plays and kind of sometimes make Alabama look bad. But, again, we have to keep in mind that Alabama did go vanilla up front.
And 6 sacks, as you talked about. Good to see those pass rushers, Williams, Hand, and Evans, all get an opportunity to harass the ULM quarterback. They'll need to harass Georgia this weekend as well. And speaking of the Bulldogs, it's time to look ahead to the big one in Athens. We'll start off with our Coach Speak, brought to you each week by MedCenter. Here's Nick Saban and Mark Richt.
Offensively, defensively, special teams, I mean, they're really solid in all areas, as their statistics, you know, sort of prove out. Grayson Lambert has done an outstanding job for him at quarterback. He's been very efficient, one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the country, and has created a tremendous amount of balance for them because they do have one of the best running games in the country. You know, Nick Chubb and Sony Michel are both, you know, outstanding players, and both have been very, very productive for him. Malcolm Mitchell has been a big player for him at receiver. So, you know, they've got a lot of weapons.
They're big, strong, very athletic guys, well coached. You know, just what everybody expects their team to be and recruits towards, and they just do a good job over there. I think we were all just concerned about winning the next SEC game. It's the game that's most important right now because we're playing it. It wasn't the most important one last week, and it won't be the most important one next week. But it is without a doubt the most important one this week. And Right now we're undefeated in SEC play. We want to keep it that way.
There you have it. Both head coaches on our Med Center Coach Speak. Well, still to come tonight on TITV, more on the Georgia Bulldogs. Rodney will break down this Georgia team, and we'll discuss what the Crimson Tide needs to do to come out on top in Athens on Saturday. Alabama is an underdog. That just does not happen very often. And also coming up later on, your phone calls, emails, and tweets. There's the information on the screen on how you can get in touch with us. The phone number is always 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Email us at TITV@WVUA23.com, or you can reach us on Twitter using the hashtag TITV. So get in touch with us. We'll want to hear from you later on. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, the award-winning Tider Insider TV. We'll return after this. Well, they're going to have that brand new stadium ready in the spring. Sewell Thomas will be totally renovated. The Alabama baseball team, seen in action right here at last season's SEC tournament, will begin fall practice. Actually, they did that today. They practiced on that newly laid sod there at Sewell Thomas. The team will have live action on Friday afternoon as they will play an inter-squad scrimmage. Everybody's excited about baseball. Newly renovated Sewell Thomas Stadium will be ready in the spring. Well, the Alabama football team is in full preparation mode for the Georgia Bulldogs, ranked number 6 in one poll, number 8 in the other. Alabama number 13 in both polls. It'll be the Tide's first SEC road test of the season, and it is going to be physical against physical. As our Jen Chapman reports, the Crimson Tide will face an offense that looks all too familiar.
The last time Alabama went into a game labeled as the underdog was the SEC Championship in 2009. 73 games later, the Tide are finding themselves in unfamiliar territory, but against a familiar opponent. In fact, the Tide think the Bulldogs resemble a team they know very well, themselves.
They look a lot like some of our teams of the past, you know, very physical, you know, don't make a lot of mistakes, don't beat themselves much. And they play with a lot of toughness, and they're very aggressive on both sides of the ball. And, you know, that's the kind of team that we've always sort of aspired to have here.
They're similar to us, I would say. So, I mean, they're not flashy like you said, but they try to beat you with that execution and that physicality on both sides of the ball. So I think we're just going to have to try to match that. And the most physical team, I think, is going to come out on top Saturday.
Georgia ranks second in the SEC in rushing offense with a star in Nick Chubb. The sophomore running back just matched Herschel Walker's record of 12 consecutive games with over 100 yards rushing. On the flip side, Alabama's rushing defense leads the SEC and is 4th in the country.
This is the type of football everybody loves to watch. Be very physical at the point of attack. If you're not physical in this game and you don't want to play physical, it's not your type of game. And Georgia's one of those type of offense, they're going to let you know what they're running, and they're going to run it to you until you stop it. So everybody got to be ready to stop that run. So it's going to be a very good game and a fun game to watch.
But come game day, the stats and rankings won't matter. And the Tide firm today that it will all be based on this week's preparation. Jen Chapman for Tider Insider.
Thank you, Jen. And, you know, Jeremy Pruitt's over there at Georgia. He's brought a lot of that toughness. Will Friend, former Alabama offensive lineman, is the offensive line coach there. Alabama's the model program. And Georgia really has stayed true to that model as well. Pro-style offense. They don't do anything too fancy, just solid all the way around. This is really a good football team, the Georgia Bulldogs, in every area.
I think it's going to be an interesting matchup when you look at Georgia's offense. Gary, obviously the strength is their running game. They average 258 yards a game on the ground against an Alabama defense, a great defensive front that's only given up 56 yards a game on the ground. You know, Gary, that's going to be, as Jen said, it's going to be physical versus physical in the trenches. And, you know, the team that probably wins that battle might be the team that wins the game.
You know, I've been saying this for a while. Even though Alabama and Georgia don't play that often, they're not annual rivals, and Alabama leads the all-time series 37-25-4. And Mark Richt has a winning record against Alabama, 3-2, but the Tide under Nick Saban has been a real thorn in their sides. After losing in overtime Saban's first year, Bryant-Denny, 2007, we remember the blackout game in 2008. Alabama was up and comer at the time. Georgia, a pretty big favorite, number 3 in the country. It was 30-0 at halftime, Rodney. Their fans remember that. As Scott Cochran said, you wear black to a funeral, and that was a funeral for the Athens fans. And then in 2012, Georgia feels like you know what? They let one get away. They would have won the SEC championship. They feel like they would have beaten Notre Dame and won the BCS title. So they've been waiting for this opportunity for a while, Rod.
Well, and I think when you look at Georgia defensively, Gary, Jeremy Pruitt's done an outstanding job getting great athletes on the field. You look at the pass rush they've got with Jordan Jenkins coming off the edge as well as Leonard Floyd. These are two of the top pass rushers in the country. Jenkins has 36 career tackles for losses, 18 career sacks. Floyd has 14.5 career sacks. Lorenzo Carter's another outstanding pass rusher that they have. So they're very talented in terms of what they do, Gary, defensively. And I think when you look at how they're going to attack Alabama, they're going to try to shut down the run, slow Alabama's running game down, and make Jake Coker have to throw it. And then they're going to pin their ears back and come back and see how he responds.
All right, later on in the program, we will make our predictions on this game. Will it be Alabama? Will it be Georgia? You'll have to stay tuned. I know we both have agonized over these picks. You don't know what I picked. I don't know what you picked. But we're going to find out a little bit later on. Right now, they're riding a little basketball. Crimson Tide coach Avery Johnson continues to do wonders on the recruiting trail. A talented junior college wing last Wednesday night out of the College of Southern Idaho. Armand Davis pledged to the Crimson Tide. This guy's 6'6", one of the premier JUCO prospects in the country. Many services rank him in the top 10 of the JUCO class of 2016, the second leading scorer at CSI last season. He can attack the basket and also show some range on his jumper. Bama's off to a great start in the class of 2016 as Davis joins five-star high school swingman Terrence Ferguson in Alabama's future class. Rodney, he is doing this, talking about Avery Johnson, without a product even being put on the floor yet.
Yeah.
Can you imagine once they get out there and start playing?
He's doing a phenomenal job, Gary. Obviously, he has a ton of connections. We talked about that from the very beginning. His enthusiasm, his reputation in terms of being a great, tremendous NBA coach, his NBA Coach of the Year, led the Dallas Mavericks to the NBA Championship Series, and he's done some fabulous things as a coach, but also as a player when he was so good with the San Antonio Spurs winning a championship. So his reputation certainly, I think, helps him on the recruiting trail.
And the Tide will begin practice on Friday night. Coming up next, we want to hear from you, our loyal viewers. Contact us with a question or a comment. There's the phone number. There's the email. You can also tweet at us using the hashtag TiderInsiderTV. We'll be right back with more right after this. The Iron Bowl of Soccer will take place Thursday at the Alabama Soccer Complex. After falling over the weekend to Ole Miss in South Carolina, Alabama will be looking for a big win over its in-state rival Auburn this week. Kickoff at 6 p.m. and it will also air on the SEC Network. Before we go to phone calls, Rodney, I want to correct a mistake that I made earlier. Will Friend, former offensive line coach at the University of Georgia, former Alabama offensive lineman, went with Mike Bobo to Colorado State. He's now the offensive coordinator at CSU. Rob Sell, former LSU player and Alabama grad assistant, is the offensive line coach at Georgia. Okay, let's go to the phones. Harold is first up tonight in Anniston. Hey, Big H, what's up, my friend?
Hey, how you doing, guys?
All right.
Hey, I know we've had the #1 recruiting class for the last 3 years, and I don't know whether it's transferred to the field yet, but I wanted to ask Rodney, man, who do you think will step up in this game, man, and show some intensity and just the will to not lose, man, whether it be on offense or defense from these 3 recruiting classes? Who you think it'll be?
Well, I don't know about individually, Harold, but I would say as a group, you certainly have to think that the defensive front with all those talented players, A'Shawn Robinson, Jaron Reed, Jonathan Allen, DJ Petway. Hey, how about Deshaun Hand? He's really started to come on up front defensively. And I think those guys really have to step up and establish the line of scrimmage. They have to slow down Nick Chubb and Sony Michel. I think if they can do that, then Alabama has an outstanding chance to win the football game. I think that's the first key. Then I think on the offensive side, I think the offensive line has to establish the line of scrimmage. This is a line of scrimmage game. I think Alabama really has to establish the line of scrimmage up front. Gary, get the running game going, take some pressure off Jake Coker, and allow him to make throws, as you would say, pick your spot, so to speak. And I think if they can do that, Harold, I think Alabama has a great chance to win the game.
All right, good phone call from Anniston. Let's go to Birmingham and talk to Vic. Vic, welcome to the show.
How y'all doing tonight, guys?
Very well.
My question to y'all is, regardless of the game Saturday, do you see the Tide being in a significant bowl game as far as the playoff format? And I hang up and listen to you. Y'all have a good night.
Well, Vic, when you say significant bowl game, yes, I do. I think Alabama's going to be good enough to get to good bowl. Now, will they get into the 4-team college football playoff? Well, they're going to have to win the rest of them probably, or most likely. Certainly can't lose more than one more. Got to get to Atlanta to have a chance to do that. So significant bowl game, yes. I think Alabama will be in a significant bowl game. College football playoff, just have to wait and see how the season unfolds.
Yeah, I think it would be really difficult if they lose another one, but you never know.
Yeah, just have to play them out. All right, Bama Jack is up next in Northport. Hey, Bama Jack.
What's up, Gary? Rodney, got two quick, short questions.
Okay.
Don't y'all think that Lane Kiffin's asking our quarterbacks to do things they're not capable of doing right now? And also, do y'all think he might be thinking 15, which is 6 and 9? I'll hang up and listen.
Okay, I'm not clear on the 15, which is 6 and 9 part. You know what he's talking about there? As far as the quarterbacks, I thought this past Saturday they ran a very conservative game plan, Bama Jack, and protected Jake Coker, built some confidence. Had 3 touchdowns, as we talked about, could have had 5. And I think you're going to see that from here on out. Now, he's going to have to throw the ball down the field some. You just have to against SEC defenses. But I think that Lane Kiffin knows what he's doing working with quarterbacks.
Well, I think probably possibly what Jack's talking about is some of the deep throws that they've had difficulties with. But, you know, Jack made a tremendous throw. Jake made a tremendous throw to Ardarius Stewart. There should have been a touchdown. It was dropped. So I think Jake Coker really seems to be kind of progressing. I think it's a team effort. We've talked completely about the offense and the revamping of that, 9 new starters. And I think when you're trying to replace so many guys, you've got such a young wide receiver core. Then you have Robert Foster, a guy who's really starting to come on for you. He goes down with an injury. Really makes it difficult.
All right. More phone calls when we come back to this edition of Tighter Insider TV after this timeout. You stay with us. There's the phone number again if you want to get through. Phone calls are lining up. We'll be back. All right, the SEC announced on Monday that Alabama's game against Arkansas on Saturday, October 10th will kick off at 6 p.m. Central and be televised nationally by ESPN. Well, Rodney figured out what Bama Jack was talking about. 6 and 9. 15 is in 6 and 9. Blake Sims to Amari Cooper. Yeah. He's asking, are they trying to do the same thing? No, I don't think they're trying to do the same thing. Bama Jack, I really don't. I think they've got a specific plan for this group of players, and I think Saturday the offense is going to be okay. All right, let's get right back to the phone lines, Rodney. First up with us is Bill in Taylorville. Hey, Bill, how are you? Bill, you there? Bill.
Hey, Gary.
Hey.
You think if we do still choose, you still got a chance for the playoffs?
Well, okay. I don't think it's promising. I don't think Alabama needs to lose another game. I think it's possible if you can lose 2 and get to Atlanta and win the SEC championship. But, you know, I think the way it's set up now, the focus needs to be on winning out.
Yep. And I think that obviously, BT, they've got to take one at a time. They have a very difficult October. You're talking about Georgia this week, Arkansas, Texas A&M, then Tennessee. That's a pretty strong run. Then you have a week off, and you've got to play back-to-back LSU and Mississippi State, and then you wind up with Auburn there at the end. So it's a difficult run for Alabama. But if they can do that, Gary, obviously they're definitely one of the teams that would be right up there at the top.
All right, that was a Bill also. That was our buddy BT. But this is Bill in Taylorville, I think. Hey, Bill, how are you? Okay. Well, tell me something. All right. Do you think Bo Scarborough will play this week?
Well, you know, he certainly is ready. He could play, Gary, but at the same time, you know, you look at the fact that he's been out of football for a while. I don't think, unless it's a late game situation, that we would see much of Bo Scarborough in this particular game. I do think as we move along, he could become a factor.
Well, he certainly is a physical specimen. You see him there. Coming off the knee surgery, coming off a 4-game suspension. I'm kind of with you, Rodney. I don't think they'll play him too much, but he certainly could factor in down the road. All right, let's go to CB here in Tuscaloosa. Hey, CB, what's going on, my friend?
How y'all doing? We've been kind of pass happy the last few weeks. Reckon we're going to man up, open them holes, and get the running game going. Then we can pass all we want to if we run the ball. What y'all think?
I think it always is easier to pass when you can run it and you pass on your terms. I think that'll be the game plan. Yeah,
I agree with you, Gary. And CB, they've got to be able to line up and run the football. I think it's extremely important in this game that they establish the line of scrimmage offensively, control the ball, and run it physically, and then pass off of that.
All right, thanks for the phone calls. Enjoy talking with you every week. Still to come, our picks for the weekend's big game over in Athens. I tell you what, I've been back and forth on this one. More Tighter Insider TV right after this. Bama Georgia picks coming up, but first you'll notice that Rodney and I are wearing these beautiful dress shirts original elephant wear, as always, provided by the Locker Room on the University Strip in Tuscaloosa, a Tuscaloosa tradition since 1964 and the home of the original elephant wear. They're going to be in their original location through the end of the year, through football season. They're going to be moving to a new building, a new location, but still get down on the Strip or shop online, I guarantee you. And it's not just original elephant wear. They provide the best in men's wear and ladies wear as well. It's the Locker Room. See Alex, see Rush, good folks. Service that's unmatched, right? And that's really the thing I appreciate when I go in there is they're going to make sure you look good and they're going to spend the time to do it.
Yeah, Rush and Mr. Gatewood, they're certainly not only outstanding people, but they do a great job, getting you picked out with the bright clothes.
Yeah. All right. It's prediction time. You always have to go first. I'll be interested to see what you think on this one.
Well, I think when you look at this game, Gary, this is a game that Georgia's had circled for a long time, and they've got a lot of things working in their favor. In fact, some people would probably tell you that this game points towards a Georgia victory. I know that the Georgia people certainly feel like it's just a matter of how much, by how much. But, they have a lot of things working in their favor. Obviously, the home crowd, they're playing extremely well. Grayson Lambert, their quarterback's really coming on. But I've got a hunch that Alabama's going to play its best game of the season, 24-21 Alabama.
Wow, I thought you were going to go with Georgia. You mentioned Grayson Lambert, incredible numbers, but let's be honest, they're not throwing the ball down the field. It's a lot like an NFL offense when they have the backup quarterback in. We saw it with Brandon Weeden with the Cowboys. We see it with the McCown brothers. They're protecting him. They're propping him up a little bit. They're going to have to throw the ball down the field. I've been ready to pick Georgia the entire time. I picked Georgia to win the SEC in the preseason, but I just have a hunch that Alabama's not going to go 0-2 in the SEC, and I'm picking the Tide as well. And I'm surprised I'm doing it because I've been telling you Georgia the whole time.
So we both have a hunch.
Yeah, 20-18. We're both going with Alabama over Georgia. We're going to find out. It's going to be a heck of a football game. I think it's going to be a tough defensive game. A reminder, if you missed any of the show, we'll have a replay tonight at 10:30 here on WVOA 23. You can also see it anytime online, WVOA23.com. For Rodney Orr and our entire TITV crew, I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for watching. Have a good night, everyone.